on, everybody? This is John Bain. I want to welcome you to Valheim. Hopefully you guys are doing good today. I'm doing good myself. Don't want to forget to remind you all to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be here when stuff happens, because here we are with some tips and tricks for Valheim. Now, this is not going to be a spoiler-rich one, except for maybe having a few things unlocked that you might not have seen yet. There's going to be enough videos out there about how to get iron and stuff like that. This is more about quality of life and building, terraforming, gathering and stuff like this, and different things that I use to increase workflow or make buildings happen easier. I just wanted to share this with you all, and I want to give a shout out to the Baniacs in the stream for suggesting making a video for this. Also, if you learned something from this, it helps you out or whatnot, please throw a like on the video and also leave a comment to let me know what worked for you. Also, if you have any other tips or whatnot you think should be added in, feel free to leave a comment down below. If there's enough of them, I'll make another video, and give you guys credit, whoever, shows something that we didn't know about. Either way, let's go ahead and get this thing going, and thank you all for watching, and I hope you find something new for you. So I want to first start this off by saying when I did the initial gameplay video from the stream, I was just learning about the terraforming with the hoe and doing a little playing around with it. I was incorrect on my first attempts on trying to work it out, but I had two comments that helped out. The first comment wasn't as clear for me, but it got the road started for learning. But the second comment really got me in parts in line. So thank you very much for that. We're able to learn from this and share it with the rest of you guys, and it just works out great. Whenever you have the hoe out, you have a couple options. The first one is level ground. What level ground does, it takes your current character's position, and wherever you put your cursor, it attempts to raise or lower, aka level, the ground to that position. There are a couple of issues that might happen with this. As you can see here, we have some level ground, but the other parts of it are lower. So with the parts where it's lower, you can actually use the raised ground. Raised ground sometimes will raise it directly up to your height, but sometimes it'll raise it up way higher. But what it's done is add pretty much, I would say, like I would call it a voxel block to the area that you can level pretty close to what the terrain height you want. And then you'll find little dips and gaps here and there. If it's a noticeable amount after you level it, you probably need to put another little, we'll call it again, voxel block there, and you'll be able to bring it up to level of what you want. As you can see here, it's cleaned up. So sometimes you'll have pieces that are up higher of the terrain while you're trying to level to your height, as you can see here. Initially, I thought whenever you use the pickaxe on it, as you can see here, it just dropped it way too low compared to the height we were going for. But again, all it is doing is removing a voxel block from that spot, and you can just take your hoe out and then level it up to the height you're looking for, and it should bring it in line. This has been extremely consistent with adding and removing. Again, I'm saying this, as you can see here, it's nice and flat, but I'm saying this because I would use the pickaxe to be like, well, it's ruined. And actually, it's not. It's just removed the extra chunk that was not necessary to reach the height we're looking for. Let's do it here one more time and kind of go for it and bring it in. And as you can see, it's brought it down to the level we're looking for. And you can check the areas and kind of go over it and just kind of try to blend in. And the parts that need to be pickaxed out are pretty apparent. And if you hit your pickaxe right in the middle of that spot where it looks like it's up too high, it will knock out that voxel chunk you don't need. And then when you go back to level it, it'll be back up to par. Another function of the hoe while leveling terrain is holding shift. What this does, instead of leveling the terrain to the height of where you're standing, it levels to the height of where the cursor is pointed. So one thing I do with this function is if I slightly move my cursor forward over a grade, it will actually smooth it out and make pathing look a little bit cleaner. It'll also add like an erosion effect if you're trying to do some variances in the ground or whatnot. So it's a nice tool if you can use it right. I wasn't using it right initially, but now that I've worked it out, it works really well again for tying in paths and other parts like that with weird grades. So building on land, I've come across a couple different ways of getting building going. Initially, when most people, it looks like, starts their build, they will use just a ceiling directly on the ground, which is okay on some smaller builds, but on larger builds, you'll find out that the ground will poke through and or it just looks a little bit off. I found that if you take a pickaxe on your spot where you just leveled beautifully, pop it down, and then choose a short beam. You can use the angle of the ground that you just leveled down to get a height that you want to set up your base floor. So you can set up your beam like right about here, and there you go. And of course you can fill it back in with the leveling tool. But then you take your half walls and you can go sideways next to the beam, and they will be underground for the rest of it, and just lift it up slightly. As you can see, you can do corners and whatnot to get it started. So using this, you can kind of get an outline of the foundation that you want to do and set it up. You don't just have to do this with half walls as well. You can do it with full-size walls if you want, or with beams. In some cases, you know, like you could go ahead and just choose the large beams, the log ones actually from the core wood. And it'll overlap if you want. You can get rid of it, just do them all like this. But this will at least give you a nice height starting point, and you have control, more control than just putting it on the ground where you start your foundations at. A lot of times, if you're not building completely flat ground, it can be kind of hard to build below your foundation beams that you've started. You can use a vertical beam to attach to the bottom of the current horizontal beams, and then you can snap completely to it to the side and work your way down without having to crouch and try to get under that. It might be frustrating, and I'm not sure how many of you figured this out, but I thought it'd be helpful to show you guys this. You can go ahead and click it on there, and then you can stack them as usual. This works for walls and, well, any horizontal beams in general. If you're trying to add beams for more foundational support inside of a border, a lot of times it won't snap correctly the way you want to a beam completely to the ground. You can either add a half wall to an exterior, you can build up and then snap over to it. And either way works like this. This is what I typically do, is run a half wall over it. And then when you bring the new beam up, point at the side of the half wall, not the ground, but the half wall itself. And you'll find that there's different snap points. You can use a full-size wall to give you a wider area, but sometimes doesn't work. But this will work for any kind of vertical beam trying to place it in square and not have it be destroyed because it's not touching the ground. So you can just come over, drop that in, and then throw in another beam, find the side of the wall, click it, and there you go. You've got more foundational support. On to everybody's favorite part of survival games, storage. Once you've got your basic building put up and started and whatnot, you kind of need to keep your mats together. And I found a way to manage my chests in a little bit nicer fashion than just, throwing them down. Now, a lot of you probably already figured this out, but putting up your chests, let me grab it, there we go. Putting up your chests sideways is a way to make them be able to store a little bit better, access them easier. If you put them side by side, you can do them in a row. And you can actually overlap them if you'd like, if you don't mind that visual bug, but you can't stack them just by putting them on top of each other, which wastes a vertical space. So what I've worked out was I just take a quarter wall ceiling. Some of you might have figured this out already. Quarter ceiling, and just stack it right on top of where the chests are at, and you can place more chests vertically on top. And you can layer them how you want to make the most of your vertical space and saving floor space overall. So you can pretty much double, triple, whatever the amount of chests you can keep in an area. Depending on what kind of leveling you're going to do, or if you're going to do multiple floors, you'll be able to access them still and have no problems getting up there. So it works for me. Hopefully that helps you out too. This next part isn't really so much a tip as it is just letting you know about one of the building mechanics. As you snap pieces together, you'll see green most of the time, and what that is doing is showing you what the structural integrity of the next piece will be. See how this one's orange? That means the next one will be the last piece you'll be able to snap to it without support. As you can see, this is red. If you were to put another piece snap to it, it would break. So that's just something to keep in mind while you're throwing up more pieces on your builds. You can throw down beams and other things to re-support it. Also, if you notice, when you snap to whatever object, you might see different colors for the structural integrity that's happening. So that's just one of the options that you've got to, one of the things to pay attention to while you're building so you don't have stuff blow up on you. Building over water. I have built a bridge here, as you can see, and if you guys have tried it before over any expansive water, it's hard to get your get off of rocks. There we go. It's hard to get your pylons correctly in the water when it gets super deep and actually have them snap correctly to your builds. So I've worked on this several hours, this one, and it taught me a lot of things about it, to how to get your snaps correct and fully supported builds across an entire expanse of water. So the first thing to do is typically make it even easier is to find a section in your river or wherever with rocks or little islands on them, so you can build a little platform to work off of in the middle of the water. It'll count as a support, and as you can see, it's green all the way out here. I'm just gonna throw some stairs down, and then you'll have a little bit of a work area to get into the depths. When trying to place your first beam down, there's a certain amount of distance you can typically find that you can go into the depths. It's usually placed on your player position versus cursor and snapping to it. Let's put this here. And you can work off the side of this going back to shallower water pretty easily. You can use the beam across the top, but it's kind of hell trying to snap it down lower. So typically what I use now is a wall at the base of the snap and bring it over. This, we're going to do 2 of them and have it snap to the side of that. It's right there. And then what you'll find is that your beam itself will snap to the side of it, no problem, at the same exact depth. And if you're going into shallower water, you'll actually have enough integrity down below to manage the structural integrity, so it continues that structural integrity and there won't be any problems. Now, when you're trying to go out the deeper water, which we don't have here, I'm going to snap off the middle of this next beam here. But if you're going out deeper, let's assume this is the bottom of your pole. If you come out with a half wall, you can go ahead and actually snap to the half wall and get a lower position on your snap point. Typically this is done easier with the shorter wood log piece. If that's what you're going to use, it'll snap right to it, and there you go. And we have a friend. As you can see though, the post is still there, no integral problems at all, and this is assuming we're going into a deeper section. You can use half walls to work your way lower and lower and lower if you need to. Just another thing to note too, if you do this, your posts will be at varying heights below. So what you need to do to make it line up at the top is make sure you snap the top beam that's going to run into the lower one even with the top line. You can use walls and then just come across it. And then when you come out with your beam, it doesn't matter what the lower beam is set at. If you snap it correctly to it, it'll go right into it and it'll have the integrity that it needs to be able to stay there alone. And it will actually pass on the structural integrity to the next pieces, as you can see here. Farming. Everyone's favorite thing to do. They get home from the day, time to go pick some carrots. And, well, a lot of times when I was just starting, I had a hell of a time putting down any type of crops and them being too close to each other and wasting seeds and overall production values that I could be doing. And when we're dealing with time value in games, the less waste, the better. And so as you can see here, every single carrot is actually ready to go, picked up and ready to go. And there's a little bit of give room here, but after testing it for the most consistent amount of returns, this has worked the best for me. Again, this might not be for everyone, but in case you're just throwing stuff down and getting tired of having dead carrots whenever you go to harvest, especially after placing them, that's it. I have got a way I've actually worked this out. As you can see, there's little nubs here sticking out the side of this. I've set this up. They're not actually square with regular beams. I'm going to go ahead and repair them. It doesn't really matter as long as you do a general lineup, but I'll show you for reference sake here, get these things lined up. So what I've got here are these short beams, horizontal beams, spaced next to each other. They're not spaced with the rest of the build, but they're spaced evenly with each other. On the side here, I've got beams and stone walls up to help with spacing as well for the other direction in the area. These are generally guide points for me to place the crops down as I go through for visual cues instead of just sitting here trying to look at it, zoom out, zoom back in, line up, zoom out, zoom back in. What I do is I look for the full wall and half wall. See how there's a full wall section and then the beam down the middle of that is a half wall to give my spacing in this direction. And then using the nubs going across here, I use that to actually square out my plants going in. So you just drop it down and kind of follow the line and kind of keep going across. And you can recheck your position if you want. I'm doing it kind of slow here just for the sake of the video. But typically this actually guarantees me that I'll have almost the max amount of crops per space available. I believe this one is 72 carrots at one time. And if I just keep going across, there we go. Also, if I kind of start losing my line, it's okay as long as it's spaced right with the top there. But generally, like I said, these are guides. They're not like total rules, but they've helped me. I have yet to have any crops not fully grow since doing this. So what you should do is start off by squaring off your garden plot however big you want. I use beams or walls, half walls to set it up. But you go ahead and get yourself a full squared out area. And then you switch over to the short beam and work off a corner. You take, let's say, this corner here, and you can actually move these into angles. I use 45-degree angles. I've tried them tighter and it just doesn't work. The crops will not grow. So getting 45-degree angles off the elbows, and now that I know how far out I'm gonna go by those beams, I can continue these angles on and on and on. Once that's done, you can take your beam and add it to the edges of those angles there to give you your points. This is the spacing I'm using for the carrots, turnips, and whatnot. I've had zero problems with that. You can actually throw in a short beam, it's floaty timing so it doesn't break. But then once you got those in there, you can remove the pieces and you're good to go. And as you can see here, it works with turnips as well. A full load of turnips. None of them are going bad. They're all in good shape. And again, if I made those angles any tighter, I've tested it. It doesn't line up. They will not have enough room to grow. So this has been what's worked for me, and it's actually, I've yet to lose any of my crops so far since doing this. So I figured I'd share this as well for the farming. So one thing you'll be doing a lot in Valheim is gathering, and I do a lot of gathering. I call it collectionist. I'm a collectionist. I like to collect things. And you'll be coming across a lot of raspberry bushes, blueberry bushes, and whatnot. And what I like to use is my actual waypoint system or icons for the map to mark areas. As you can see, I've got 6 RB, whatever RB for 6 raspberry bushes or whatnot. Also, I use it for like special areas. I use the hammer for like dungeons and troll holes. And what I do is I leave the name up when I get that. And when I finish an area, I will remove it. But I usually use a spread of it. Same with the copper. I'll mark up a spot for copper. Once I finish the copper, I'll remove it. And this really works for when you're trying to do a bunch of gathering and you know the cycles on bushes are back again. So this might help you out a little bit with this. And if you don't know how to actually put icons on, you click on the right there, then double click on the map. It'll give you an option at the bottom to type in a text. And then you can also right click it to get rid of it. But if you put it back, let me put it back right quick. You can also click on it and exit out. So if you've finished something and you just want to have that mark still there, you just can click it and have a little X mark to let you know too. So there's a couple options for whenever you're doing that. But this has helped me really shave off a bunch of time trying to go for raspberries, blueberries, and whatnot. So fine wood, you know, core wood and regular wood is easy to get. Typically we get it from these birch trees. The birch trees themselves typically drop about, I would say about 10 wood per tree itself. And as you can see here, it is 10 wood. But that's not the only tree that yields fine wood. As you can see here, there's an oak tree, and these are located in the meadows. They're somewhat rare. Just keep your eye out for them. They're the big boys. They're real big boys. When you chop it down, and as you can see, we get about twice the amount of fine wood. Just thought it'd be something neat to share with you guys. Another thing you might find out in Valheim is that you need a lot of wood and stone and everything. But with the woods, I don't really like clearing out forest around where I'm building. I like to keep it like kind of a natural feel, and that's just something I'm specifically going for. So what I typically have been doing now, I'll use the teleporter system to teleport objects or materials that are not blocked by teleportation. One of those is woods. Typically now I'll find a stone castle type place and take it over by putting a workbench down and filling in the holes. Place a teleporter at my base, name it, connect it, and then have a row of chests where I'll load all the wood in one section. Once I've got enough wood, I'll typically head back to the temporary base, load up on all the mats that I had gathered in that area, wood and whatnot, load them all the way up. And even if I'm encumbered, since I'm right next to the portal, I'll just hit the portal, come back across, and have a cart waiting on the other side to transport it where I need. What this has done is decreased the amount of running around, and once I clear a radius around a dilapidated building, if you will, I'll pull up the teleporter and other objects and go to the next one that has plenty of trees around it and do the same thing over and over again. This has increased my wood gathering by a nominal amount, and it might help you out too. One thing to note is that this cannot work with ore since it cannot be teleported, but it will work with almost everything else. When you're gathering rock or ore, make sure that you hit it from the top. The reason for this is you do more damage at the bottom of the swing than partially from the side. I've tested this with rock, tin, copper, iron, you name it, and it has been consistent. Speaking of ore, what you first see on top of the surface is not necessarily how much copper is available. The first time I saw this on the stream, I thought that was all we had, but afterwards I went back and dug even more, and there is a lot more below the surface, and sometimes when you're breaking the copper from the top, you won't see the next piece that is actually in the ground below it. Here, I'll clear out almost an entire section of the copper ore node, and you can see the difference. This is also at the point the lowest that you can dig in the terrain, so you can see the copper goes all the way down. So that's it. That's everything I've got in my box of tricks, I think. Probably missed a couple things, but generally I was just trying to throw helpful information for you all. And hopefully it did help some of you out. I know some people are going to have different ways they like to do things, might not agree or whatnot, but I figured at least share what I do and see what I can put out there for y'all. And, well, thank you very much for watching. Again, if there's anything that helps you, don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment, let me know what helped you. And if you have any other suggestions, just let me know. And as always, thank you guys so very much, and you all have a good night.